Okay, let's just dive right into this. I want you to imagine your mind as the ultimate control room. It's got the power to build incredible things, to totally propel you forward, but it can also construct these invisible barriers that completely derail your success. So in today's explainer, we're really going to explore two radically different ways this control room operates. We're going to contrast the walls we consciously build for ourselves through bad habits with the literal prisons built entirely by neurochemistry.
And here is our roadmap for getting there. First, the brain's invisible traps. Then, focus, paralysis, and action, followed by fear, ego, and control. Then we'll hit destructive mental loops, extreme reality shifts, and finally, navigating the mind.
All right, Section 1, the brain's invisible traps, conscious versus involuntary.
So right off the bat, there's a foundational difference we really have to grasp here. On one hand, we have conscious wealth traps. Now, these are behavioral choices, right? The hard decisions we actively avoid or the bad habits that directly block us from success. But on the other hand, we have involuntary realities. These are neurochemical conditions where the brain literally, physically struggles to generate the right chemicals. And that requires clinical care and deep empathy, not just a simple, change in mindset.
Section 2, focus and paralysis, taking action. If you're trying to build wealth, there are two massive, totally conscious traps you absolutely have to avoid. First up is having too many inputs. We live in a world where we are just constantly consuming information. But look, if you're just taking it all in without actually applying any of it, it becomes a huge barrier to your success. And the second trap? Staying static. Choosing not to evolve and just refusing to make the hard choices are conscious behaviors that will absolutely destroy your productivity. But remember, the key here is that they are entirely controllable.
But what happens when a lack of action isn't a choice at all? Take attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that controls planning, actually develops differently here. It is not laziness, guys. It's a literal, physical lack of dopamine that makes starting a boring task feel physically painful. People with ADHD experience this agonizing gap between intention and action because the truly exhausting part is knowing exactly what you need to do, but having to watch yourself fail to do it anyway, simply because willpower alone cannot bridge that chemical gap. To put that into perspective, think about staying static in business. That is a conscious behavioral choice to avoid risk. We do it all the time. But depression? That is entirely different. It isn't just a bad mood you can magically shake off. It is an involuntary emptiness. It's a chemical state where your brain physically struggles to produce serotonin and dopamine. Just getting out of bed can literally feel like climbing a mountain. And the worst part is, the disorder whispers quietly to you until you forget what feeling alive even used to be like.
Section 3, fear, ego, and control. The illusion of control.
Okay, let's talk about how we consciously sabotage our own success through the illusion of control. Doing everything yourself and failing to delegate, that is a guaranteed way to put a hard cap on your wealth. Being ego-driven, that just lets your pride dictate your business moves and will completely blind you to much better opportunities. And passing the blame, refusing to take accountability, just keeps you stuck in the exact same place forever. These are active, conscious choices that will flat out guarantee financial failure if you don't unlearn them.
But what happens when that trap isn't a choice? What happens when you aren't the one actively passing the blame, but rather your own brain is sounding this terrifying alarm that you never even authorized? And that brings us to the objective, clinical reality of panic disorder and generalized anxiety. These are conditions where the brain's fear center, the amygdala, actually misfires. It triggers a full-blown survival response without any actual danger present, just flooding the body with stress hormones. It essentially turns everyday worry into a constant, exhausting alarm system. And when this misfiring manifests as social anxiety disorder, it transforms totally normal, everyday interactions into terrifying threats, where your brain absolutely convinces you that everyone is judging you, making escape feel like your only option. I want to share a quote: "Anxiety primes your body for panic." Seriously, think about that agonizing feedback loop for a second. In panic disorder, after that first attack hits, the real trap isn't just the physical attack itself. It's the profound, gripping fear of having the next one. Your entire world shrinks because you become terrified of what your own nervous system might do to you without your permission. Section 4. Destructive mental loops. Inescapable rituals. All right, let's dive into the classic financial rat race. This is a cyclical trap people consciously build for themselves. Step 1. Working for just money.
Tying your entire life's purpose to a paycheck severely limits your potential. Then, step 2, buying a lifestyle. You start making more money, so you instantly inflate your lifestyle just to look rich to others rather than actually building real wealth. It creates this highly stressful loop of earning and spending. But the absolute key takeaway here, it is entirely breakable with better behavioral choices.
Now, I want you to contrast that totally breakable financial habit with obsessive-compulsive disorder and eating disorders, because these are inescapable loops of intrusive thoughts. OCD is not a quirky joke about being super neat. It is absolute torture. It's the desperate, crushing compulsion to check a door lock 15 times because your brain is 100% convinced a catastrophic disaster will happen if you don't. Similarly, eating disorders literally hijack the mind. They disguise themselves as logic and willpower in a chaotic world, twisting a person's relationship with food into a really dangerous, totally involuntary method of control. The stark reality is that OCD makes you a prisoner to thoughts you never wanted in the first place. There is a pure lack of choice in this neurochemical loop, because knowing a ritual is completely irrational doesn't stop the overwhelming fear from demanding you perform it anyway. Recognizing that profound lack of control is exactly where true empathy for these conditions has to begin.
Section 5. Extreme reality shifts, altered perceptions.
We're moving into some pretty profound territory here with schizophrenia. This is a disorder that literally fractures how the brain processes reality. The neurotransmitters misfire, and it creates what clinicians call positive symptoms, which basically means adding things to reality that shouldn't be there. Things like terrifying hallucinations, voices, or delusions. But it also creates negative symptoms, which subtract things that should be there, completely flattening all joy, motivation, and emotion. It is absolutely not an act of imagination. The brain genuinely perceives these internal experiences as 100% real.
Now let's compare two other profound conditions. With bipolar disorder, the brain swings uncontrollably between superhuman, high-energy mania and heavy, paralyzing depression, and it never asks for your permission. Conversely, with dissociative identity disorder, or DID, the mind literally shatters into different parts or alters as a biological survival response to severe childhood trauma. It is literally the brain compartmentalizing to protect itself from pressure that was simply too great for a child to bear. Which leads us directly into post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Trauma can permanently rewire our neurochemistry. Normally after something scary happens, the nervous system calms down and neatly files the memory away. But with PTSD, that specific filing system breaks. The brain gets permanently stuck in survival mode. People experience these visceral physical flashbacks where, for those moments, they genuinely believe they are in immediate danger all over again. The alarm system simply will not turn off.
Section 6. Navigating the Mind. Empowering Perspectives.
So, what is the absolute core takeaway we've been exploring today? It's the massive difference between breaking a bad habit and treating a medical condition. We absolutely must hold ourselves accountable for our conscious habits. If we're being ego-driven, staying static, or caught in the financial rat race, we have to own that. We have to actively change it. But simultaneously, we really must extend massive, unconditional grace to the complex medical realities of mental disorders. True empathy requires recognizing the unseen battles within the mind's control room. Whether you are actively working to avoid self-sabotage and build real wealth, or you're surviving a fractured neurochemical reality, human resilience is just incredible. The mind is a wildly powerful and sometimes incredibly perilous landscape.
So I want to leave you with this. The next time you see someone struggling to move forward, will you automatically assume it's just a behavioral choice? Or will you ask what invisible, involuntary weight they might be carrying? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.